Hello and welcome to Attacking Third, your favorite women's soccer show. I'm Sandra Herrera alongside McCall Zerboni and Jen Beattie, and we just got a regular boring show. Don't even stick around. Like nothing's happening this off season. Just don't even worry about it. Just kidding. We're gonna talk all things Trinity Rodman because there's some updates to get through, and we're gonna help you all get through. And we're also going to continue to do an NWSL news roundup, maybe do a little bit of a deep dive on some of the transactions that have been taking place across the league, whether they're on the player side or even the executive side, really. And of course, we're going to check in across the pond. There's a big international window we got to discuss. And of course, upcoming UWCL news as well. Can't do that alone. I'm here with McCall, Jen. McCall, Jen, how you both doing today?
Good. I hope we're all trying to get each other through this one. I've been trying to keep up with the news. So many things are coming out, so I'm excited to get through it with all you guys.
You guys, I know summer is over, but the juice is still squeezing. It is getting to the juicy time right now. So much is happening. I'm so excited. I can't wait to chat about it with y'all.
I gotta say, I was so amped to get on the show because Beattie, I was like, God, we haven't done one of these in a little while. I miss my girl Jen. We're gonna do this, and then all of this news started dumping. The player transactions have cranked up, and I'm like, oh goodness, it's not gonna be a simple hang by any means. We've got to get into the nuts.
There's no catching up on this one.
No. We're gonna get in there with the screwdriver.
Yeah, that's right, dance.
Fires. Yeah, all the nuts and bolts of it all. It's a lot, but we're just all happy to be here together, getting through it. Shout out to everyone who is joining us. Thank you all for being here with us, whether you're just listening to us as a podcast or joining us live on YouTube, watching on Golazo Network. We're happy that you're here. Let us know that you're here. I'm sure if you're live on YouTube, you've got thoughts and feelings about everything going on right now too. So definitely let us know how you're feeling. Maybe our producer will pluck some of your comments and flash them across the screen for us to see. But let's hop right into it. Segment 1, Trinity Rodman. We've got to give as many updates as we can on this. The NWSL season came to a close. Gotham winning the NWSL championship, Washington Spirit ending up as the runners-up for a second consecutive year. And part of the big storylines coming out of that was Trinity Rodman and her contract status. Really, it's been something that has been chatted a bit about throughout the year, but obviously really cranked up once that potential final game came into view. And in this case, it was a championship final. And so now that is done and dusted, it feels like there is something happening in terms of the Trinity Rodman contract status, literally day to day, hour to hour, it feels like. So some of the biggest updates right now are the fact that she wants to stay, it seems like, because the news that is out there right now really took a turn. There are multiple outlets who reported that there is, in fact, a deal to keep Trinity Rodman not only in the NWSL, but with the Washington Spirit. But ultimately, this deal was vetoed by the league. Bloomberg reporting by Berman specifically. Sounds like it's getting a little personal, y'all. I do wonder if this is the phase of it all where it kind of gets a little bit ugly before it gets actually resolved. Because the deal that was on the table, according to sources within various reports throughout Bloomberg and The Athletic and the Washington Post, that Rodman was offered a 4-year deal with a salary that was backloaded to the final 2 years of her contract. And definitely over the $1 million mark. And then the league essentially stated that that contract violated the spirit of the rules and it violated the structure of the league rules. So while that is kind of maybe the caveat where folks are kind of focusing a bit on right now, because, well, then it leads to more questions, right? It's like, what's the rule?
Sorry, I had to laugh. The spirit violating the spirit of the rules. No way.
Yeah. Incredible work here. Like we love a framing, and that was truly perfect. But there's nothing really stated that, in terms of actual rules that exist, there's nothing really in place that directly forbids a year-over-year increase, and that there's also no maximum for any individual player's salary. And so that as long as the team is within the salary cap limits, things should be all good. But there's a lot of Spider-Man meme going on here. There's a lot of finger pointing. And there's also, not really commenting to some of these reports at this time, whether it's by the league side or the club side. So before we get into the next steps of things that have broke, because now the PA is involved at this point, and we'll definitely get into that. As far as just what has come out there in terms of, hey, so it turns out there could potentially be a contract in place, or there was, but it got vetoed. I just want to go with like first reactions to that as a whole. McCall, you hear something like that, maybe it gets one of those preliminary answers out of the way, because one of those questions was like, is Trinity Rodman staying or is she going?
I mean, I think when you think about that, we're still a very young league. We're still laying the land. Yes, we wrote the rules, but we're still adapting to policies and figuring out what that's really going to bring about. And, you look at the Premier League over in England, they've been here for over 30 years, right? So especially when we continue to change these rules, now we have, full free agency, no draft, no expansion draft, right? When we continue to adapt these new things, there's going to be loopholes that are created, and it's just going to be ever evolving. So this is one of those things where we don't really know, is the Spirit deserving of a slap on the wrist and not doing the right thing, or are they just playing within the loopholes that are not written? But for me, Haley Carter specifically getting that job, she's done amazing, and I think she was always looking to go upwards. But the minute she announced we will do anything to keep Trinity, for me, that gives the agent and the player so much power that they know that the ball is in their court. And so they will manipulate and push it to the very nth degree, because you've already publicly stated that your mission is to keep Trin.
Jen, I'm curious for your perspective of this one, because you're coming at it from a lot of different angles. You spent some time in NWSL, but you navigated from league to league, continent to continent. What were some of your reactions when you kind of saw some of the updated contract status talk come out?
Yeah, I just feel like the salary cap, in simple terms, just holds the league back. I think you've got one of the league's arguably biggest stars wanting to stay at the club that they love and wanting to, be a part of the league's history. And she's been a part of 2 championship losses games back to back and wants to achieve that success at Spirit. And I think that's all you would ever want as a fan, is to see a player you love want to stay at the club. And I think with all the news that's been coming out, that massively shines through. And ultimately, we've seen big US stars leave the league, Alyssa Thompson, Naomi Girma. And this is why this story, in my experience or just perception of it, that's why it's so big, is no one wants to keep seeing national team players leave the league. So for me, it's just a case of kind of going back to your point, McCall, how, all these rules and loopholes, but ultimately the game is growing so fast, and those rules need to adapt along with it to progress with the game. And sometimes I think, right, if it's holding it back, it's not necessarily helping anymore. And that's okay to admit it change. It's just about having people willing to do that. I think, we're seeing a sign of NWSL expanding the league and more teams coming into it. I think priority needs to be keeping players in the league and adding to, the star curve and the quality of it. So no, I think ultimately you've got a player who wants to stay and a club that wants to keep her. For me, I'm like, why is this such it's the salary cap is holding it back? For me, that's like not, and the money's there as well. You got Michelle Kang is willing to invest in a club. We've seen that every club she owns, Lyon, London City, and now Spirit. She wants to keep her top player at another top club and build on that. For me, it's like, it's really difficult to see that kind of last piece of the puzzle hold something back that could be awesome. So I'm struggling with it.
I've had a lot of feelings and thoughts that the league is using, we want parity as a cover for, we don't want to spend money. That we want an excused out of why we're not going to pay these players this much over the next 9 years in this deal. And yes, competition is great and it's healthy and it brings in fans and it keeps things exciting. But I think we would have gotten that no matter what. And I also think that is professional sports. whoever spends the most money, whoever has the best players, whoever has the best resources in the league, that's where players want to go. You see it in the NFL, you see it on the women's side in games. There's the leagues that spend money, the teams that spend money, the organizations that give good resources, that's where the players want to go, and they become dominant. And so we're using parity as a cover for these owners and this league that didn't want to spend money on the players, in my opinion.
McCall, to your point a little bit, when I think of some of this stuff that's been coming out, and we'll get into this next, maybe this is where we get into the next phase of it all right now, because coming off of last night's reporting, following up in the morning, because a news cycle is minute by minute at this point. Right now, the NWSLPA has filed a grievance on behalf of Trinity Rodman. And so that's the new updated piece of all this. Last night there was a deal. It got vetoed. It kind of puts Jessica Berman in the spotlight a little bit, because within the initial Bloomberg report, it called her out a bit, saying like the commissioner vetoed it. So there's some layers here. I think there's the PA's involvement, obviously, in filing the grievance, but there's also Jessica Berman of this all, like as far as the two parties that are really representing the appropriate sides here. How are they doing? Like, how would we rate the job that they're doing? Because when I'm looking at everything that's come out so far, and my own conversations that I have around this topic, it's sort of just like I mentioned a little earlier, like it just sort of feels like all of these discussions and this process overall is kind of entering that state of where it kind of gets a little messy, it gets a little ugly before it eventually gets resolved. Maybe it gets a little personal when you're just like, well, we had something in place, but the commissioner vetoed it. And I think you can open that box up a little bit and say, well, the commissioner's doing the job that she got paid to do by multiple owners here. And now you have the PA who are essentially kind of doing their job. They're filing the grievance on behalf of Trinity and Trinity Rodman. So
yeah. I mean, knowing what I know, especially since I was pretty much responsible for writing the collective bargaining agreement, that says to me that Trin and her agent are upset because they feel that they're coloring within the lines and the rules and the regulations of SPA, Standard Player Agreement, and the league within the league rules. And for whatever reason, the league and the club didn't like with the avenue that they came up to get her money that she wanted, but they're technically not breaking the rules. But it's putting the club and the league in a pinch, either financially or contractually, especially knowing that it's on a sliding scale increasing, right? So you have to think, okay, well, you're going to make this first 2 years because we're already committed to paying these players this much money. But when they leave or when their contract is up, that's when we're going to slide you your money, right? Because we have to play within the salary cap. So they're coming up with, intricate and creative ways to get her money. And the league is now being like, oops, we didn't think about that. How are we going to stop this, basically?
Jen, I'm almost sort of interested, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, mate, but when you're someone who has experience, like I mentioned, you're someone who has experience navigating different leagues and having to negotiate a contract across the pond, having to do that stateside. When you see something like that drops this morning before we go live, and you're like, a grievance, what are your impressions of that?
Well, my first thing is, what is a grievance?
Yeah.
First and foremost. Now that maybe that shows naivety, but I think it's, I guess, having, like kind of what McCall was saying, there's so many loopholes and, following the rules, who's following them. And to be honest, from a player's perspective, I was never wanting to talk about contracts from player to player and ask what they're asking for and the loopholes and maybe tricks of the trade and all this kind of stuff. So I can genuinely say that if someone had something in their contract, I wouldn't know anything about it. It was very much focus on yours. But personally, I like to stay within the rules. That was my kind of experience. I wasn't trying to, but I understand that when a player has that kind of value, and if I'm in the dressing room with them, I get it. I'm like, you fighting for it because you have that value next to your name. And I'm like, also the league needs someone to kind of take responsibility for everyone else who maybe could be in a similar position coming into the league. Someone needs to push the boundary. And for me, I think that's what Rodman's doing. So I have like massive respect for her in that sense. And they are doing everything because, again, it's a collective from them. It's a Rodman and Michelle Kang, her owner, her like one that owning the club. So I guess it's like a lot going into it. But I think my initial, to answer your question, is kind of understanding there's so many people involved in it. And that's kind of becomes a bit of a problem because you have, I think everything I've seen is conversations are happening by every single minute of the day, as what it sounds like. And for me, when there's so many people involved, that's when things become harder because there's more opinions and there are more rules and there's more loops to get around.
I think what this grievance kind of does. It kind of points that out because ultimately that's what a grievance is. It's essentially just a formal complaint and it's filed on behalf of the union, on behalf of this player. And it almost sort of just feels like it's almost like it's happening in slow motion, even though it feels like it's happening very quickly. I can't imagine that a deal is manufactured and it's on the table, but it gets vetoed. And naturally, from the player side of things, you're like, well, if it's not violating rules and you can't even cite the rules that it's supposedly violating, you're gonna have to file this grievance. So as far as the PA, that was the breaking news that happened before we hopped on to this show via The Athletic. It states that because the proposed contract structure doesn't actually violate any NWSL rules, the PA went ahead and filed the grievance with the league on Rodman's behalf. And the PA in the grievance argues that the league violated at least 5 different sections of the current CBA, the current collective bargaining agreement. And it also states that the league essentially accused Rodman of SAP calorie circumvention. And part of that, they're probably looking at the part of the contract that is backloaded. And so the PA
is also getting messy too, because
how are the
people in the locker room supposed to feel that the player next to them is trying to take and rob all their money for their survival? Right. That that doesn't create good energy in the locker room, especially knowing, I'm all about get yours. Listen, we've spent a lot of time being underserved. Go and get it. But she also makes a lot in sponsorships, brands. Like, she's not going to suffer if she doesn't get paid that much money. Whereas there are some people in the locker room just 2 over from her, putting on their boots every day, that are a large margin of monetary income than her.
But I would say, just to add on that, I don't think that's not a Rodman. Again, that's a league problem for me. She's getting what she should be earning because that's her value and that's what she brings.
I'm just saying for the vibe, though. Like, vibe is very important for success. And they're literally trying to win a championship. They've been in the final for the last 2 years. Like, they need any little margin that they can get, that extra 1%, to make sure that everyone is bought in, committed, feels good about it, and wants to come back and win a championship.
I think in part of what you're saying, McCall, like, you're looking at like the roster as a whole, and if we're just going off of like the Spirit's previous season, like a huge part of their return back into the final was because they had so much depth on that roster. And I think when you start getting into the contract scenarios for every player, like, they obviously will look different. Like, I can't imagine that Kate Wiesner's contract looks anything similar to Trinity Rodman's, let alone maybe even someone like
Corbett. And she deserves a raise too. So you start thinking about, all this money is disappearing. Well, who are they taking it from? Because they can only spend so much.
Well, I think to Jen's point, I think that's part of like that falls back on the league. And so maybe you had maybe there's also these components of it where it's just like, I know like that's something that actually doesn't exist in this league right now. Like player salary transparency period doesn't exist, or transaction transparency doesn't actually exist in this league, even though they say that it does. And even though they have said that like numbers have to be attached to certain announcements, yet sometimes those numbers still aren't attached.
I will say amongst the players it is. We have a doc that we can log into,
that's great. But I do wonder, like, this is really kind of uncharted.
But that's to get us power in negotiations when we go. Be like, okay, this person plays my position. They've played this long. They're also on the national team. This is my ballpark of what I should ask for.
So
basically.
when you get like things like reporting involved or a show involved, like these other type of mechanisms that folks try to utilize to make sure they get their part of the story out, and that kind of stuff isn't in front of you, I think it gets a little tricky. I think that the salary transparency stuff is a conversation for another day, but it's like I think there are folks out there that want to see and know those things, and across the board, not just like, not just players, but like I'm sure people are very curious about like what some executives and how they're managing things is as well. Like, and those are all
what coaches
things,
make.
those are all things, that's all information that could be beneficial to everybody, but it doesn't exist, unfortunately. So there's like all of these, this is where I'm kind of I think we're all kind of sitting in it, where it kind of feels like this particular negotiation is kind of uncharted territory, because the league is finding itself in a position in where it has never really found itself before, with trying to work something out to keep a very specific player in its league. And on the player side of things, they are also navigating this for a first time. And it's wild to think about that, in that this is not something that is familiar. And we're coming off of big names leaving this league just one or 2 years out, whether it's an Alex Morgan or a Megan Rapinoe, and again, this is all very, very new. And so I do wonder if like a uncharted territory like this, it brings up all of these other kind of sub questions, right? It's not just about this initial reaction to the varying levels of news that we're seeing right now around Rodman. It's bringing up things of like, do people think that the Jessica Berman is doing a good job right now? Do people think that the PA is being effective right now on behalf of Trinity Rodman? Like, it brings up things like as simple as like, can the league afford to lose a Trinity Rodman? I think to Jen's point about like it being more of a league issue, that's part of it. Can they afford to lose a player with the star power and skill set of Trinity Rodman?
And or you agreed to a deal that you didn't foresee this happening. Did you not think the league was going to become younger and younger and less expensive per player? Like, what did you think was going to happen once these stars start growing bigger and bigger, and there's a ceiling they have to play underneath?
And also, I do think it's important to say that, like, when you're a part of a national team and you see your teammates consistently going elsewhere to play, that does have a knock-on effect. And I think that is important. I think I don't think the league, don't get me wrong, there's so much more quality in it. I think Emma Hayes had amazing points. I saw her do an interview that it should be celebrated now that there's so many other opportunities for players to go and play. And I thought that was brilliant. And the NWSL still has so much quality and incredible stars, and it's in a great place. But I think the continued narrative of US national team players going and playing elsewhere, it would be a huge point that the league could make if they keep Rodman. And I think that's where the importance stands. And I think, again, I'll say it again, player, club, both want to keep her there. Now it's the league that are kind of holding it back. So I do think it's massively important that they keep her at Spirit.
Jen, do you feel like with some of the stuff that just came out, like, does it still feel, in your opinion, like she could just leave or look at other offers outside of the league? Or what's out there, is it enough for you to be like, well, it's going to be here? They're trying to figure out enough stuff that it's NWSL.
I mean, it feels like, listen, I've been in situations where things become public and you never really know the truth to it. And we're trying to stick to the facts. And as a player, there's going to be so much stories that are whispers. And if something becomes public, it's driven more to that. But at the minute, it definitely feels like if a player wants to stay, you know, in my experience as well, you're willing to accept less because you want to stay and you love the club. So I can definitely see her staying. She's shown loyalty and shown that she's want to stay. So I think if she does a massive switch up, then I can also see that happening, because you have Michelle Kang who owns other top clubs. So I can see both ways happening. Until something's literally confirmed, I'm all open. Anything can still happen, and it's hard to really say, put a pin on it and predict. But for me, it looks like she'll stay. It's about just coming to an agreement where all parties are happy.
And with that point, they both have bargaining power. Trin wants to stay. The club doesn't want to spend as much money as she's asking for. So it's going to be this long negotiation back and forth, how it is supposed to be with big numbers and big money and important things. But as a league and as players and coaches and fans of the NWSL, we need to be secure and confident that the league will be fine and survive and can afford to lose a Trinity Rodman and still go on and still be amazing. Because if we keep basing it on stars and big players, we're going to lose our way and we're going to lose everything that we've built and everything that we're about. We need to stand strong in all the commitment that all of us on this call and that are listening have built for 13 years, that the NWSL is so strong and valuable and talented that sometimes you gotta, let one go to survive the rest.
Do you think, McCall, that I guess in line with this sort of thinking, if like the NWSL can the league afford to lose her, it kind of sounds like maybe you're just like, if that does happen, that the league will just sort of just continue to just figure itself out and thrive in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to shrink it down. Can the Spirit afford to lose her? This is a club by club basis. We're talking about competition here. We're not talking about survivable league. The league is going to survive. We are foundationally strong enough that we will go on. It's the Spirit needs to decide how they want to build their team for next season and next year without Trin, and what would they do?
Do you think maybe if you had to look at it right now, do you think that there's an advantage more one way or the other? Because this is just naturally like a pendulum swing, right? Like 1 hour it's going to probably lean towards one way, and then in the next hour it'll lean towards the league. I do wonder if, like, because that was some of my first reaction. My first reaction was like, okay, well, this is actually checking off a big box here. And what that big box is that Trinity Rodman wants to be in the United States. Trinity Rodman wants to be in the NWSL.
And we love to hear that. And
I do wonder if maybe there's a part of that feels like a bargaining chip for the league.
Yeah, because that's saying a lot about the NWSL, that one of the biggest stars in the world wants to continue playing here. She's enjoying it. She feels challenged here. She wants to chase that ship again. So, it's saying two things at once. It's saying the league is very strong and attractive and admirable to players, but also there's a little bit of restrictions as far as how much money they can pay when you're like a global star like Trin.
I do wonder, maybe this is where you can hop in a little bit on this, Beattie, but I do wonder, like, removing some of what we now know, like, let's just say this deal wasn't on the table. Let's just say we still didn't really know if Trinity Rodman was in fact going to be tied, to the United States and want to stay in NWSL. That you mentioned that anything can happen, because the other thing that's coming into play with this is really it's time. There's not a lot of time here to sort something out. Winter window, January, those will close eventually. And if you are signing a player, especially overseas, there are certain things you want to get in order. And I think when you're looking at the profile of player, and unfortunately, in Trinity Rodman's case, yes, it's a big contract year, and yes, she's a big player, but she's also coming off of a year with multiple varying injuries. And so there's a lot of things that come into play. I think if you're an overseas squad, you want to get that player in for evaluations. You want to have those discussions. And maybe some of those have already been had, but that still doesn't mean that the timeline isn't winding down quicker and quicker and quicker. Before we know it, January is literally going to be here. It's already December 4. So if, and these are all big ifs, if it is overseas, Jen, Beattie, who actually has the money? Who's going to pay?
Tell me, Jen. I want this so bad from you. Don't say Arsenal, girl.
Yes, because let me tell you right now, I think we can all agree that it will not be a contract that is like $1 million. It's going to smash that. It's going to be multi-millions. Let's just be clear about that right now, because Trinity Rodman already made history when she was coming out of her rookie year, and her year-by-year contract then already eclipsed the $1 million mark. So I would have to imagine that anything that her team is looking to get now is going to be in the multi-million dollar range. And when I look at the landscape of Europe, I'm just like, Jen, who's going to do it? Who's even going to do that?
I mean, we've seen it being done. That's the fun thing. Chelsea could quite happily just keep doing what they've been doing and buying all the best players effectively. signing Kira Walsh, Lucy Bronze, Alyssa Thompson, Naomi Girma. The list goes on, and I would not be surprised to see Rodman added to that list. You'd throw Leon in there 100% with the ownership. It's the obvious one for me, and the way that they've invested this over this summer. The only downplay of Europe, you're talking mid-season, right? So people don't have their full budgets with that year. So I'd be a little less surprised or more surprised to see that kind of budget being bust from. But she's a free agent also. That's important to say. There's not an amount that needs to be spent on her.
Right.
Her signing fee, free agent. So it would be all salary. So. But yeah, for sure. Would I love to see her in an Arsenal shirt? Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't know if Arsenal's paying that money, homie. I don't know.
There's also always some surprises. Like we've seen top stars go to Tottenham. Who would have thought Tottenham would have spent money on Alex Morgan or at Crystal Palace? Or, there's always that one that just kind of rises in and, they think they're going to change their organization with one player and they're willing to spend it. And, so it could be not even one of the top guns that we're thinking about.
Maybe. I'm also just kind of like, I shout out to the chat because I see it's very, very active. It's very, very hard to keep up with it. But I see people throwing out like Leon. I see people throwing out like London City Lightness. And I'm just going to I'm sorry. I just got to squash that right now because I think it's everything that's in front of it. Not that you ever want to read between the lines, but everything that's in front of us or available to us right now as far as reporting says to me that Michelle King wants Trinity Rodman in NWSL. And I maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here. I do not.
But she owns two teams in two different leagues.
And to that point, I do not.
She just wants Trin.
I do not think Michelle King wants that smoke. I don't. I think that there was a lot of maybe negative perspective about poaching someone like Heraldez from Spirit to Lyon. I don't think she's interested in having any more of that to close out the year. I do not think King maybe figure something out to get her to another Kang-owned team. I think Michelle King wants Trinity Rodman in the United States and wants her on the Spirit. So if I'm someone who's looking at that and removing those teams, there's not a lot of teams in Europe who I think can make that kind of offer. I mean, my goodness, like Barcelona is just coming off of a year where they're like, we don't know what we're doing. We can't figure this out. Like we got to give all our money. We got to give all our money to Beaumont. We simply can't give it to anybody else. So I'm like, who is it going to be? Then who is it actually going to be? And if I'm sorry, when I look at that move from Alyssa Thompson to Chelsea, I also think that took away some of the bargaining chips from Trinity Rodman's representation, because I think that signals to me that Chelsea maybe could have been in the mix at one point, but maybe they moved on a little bit. They got their young up and coming United States national team winger. Her name is Alyssa Thompson. So I'm very, very curious to just see what actually unfolds here. And I'm very curious to see if Europe does try to become a part of this conversation, because as far as I'm concerned, as far as perception, they are not. They're not part of this conversation. At least right now on December 4, it is all Trinity Rodman, United States, and NWSL.
If something breaks right after this episode,
I love it. Let's do it. We'll just hop back on. We'll just hop back.
Call me.
Yeah, we'll just do it all over again. We'll just live in an endless cycle and loop of Trinity Rodman news. Okay, let's try to end on some hope here. Before we break into the rest of the show, because there is the rest of the show. With what's available, do either of you think that yes, there will be a solution that is reached so that Trinity Rodman stays in NWSL?
I mean, I just want Trin to have what she wants. If my baby girl wants to stay here in the NWSL, come on, figure it out for her. That's not only important for the player, it's important for the league, it's important for the players around her so she can bring more exposure to them and help them grow. It's difficult to make happen, but I'm going to stay confident that it is going to happen, and Trin will remain here with us and everything is going to be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's a reason why things make the media, right, is to put pressure on whoever needs the pressure. And I think that's quite purposeful, potentially. So I think there's a place where it happens, for sure.
I think we're going 3 for 3 as well. I think, unfortunately, because this is the unprecedented, uncharted territory contract status that we've never really seen before, it eventually has to get a little bit painful, I think, before it actually does get resolved. And I think that is firmly what it's in right now. So naturally, to your earlier comment, there will probably be some breaking after the show, Jen, and we'll have to talk about a new update again. But in the meantime, we're going to continue the show. We're going to keep talking a little bit about player movement, NWSL movement in general. We've got some things to talk about coming up after a quick break.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
Can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric. Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount+.
Hello and welcome back to Attacking Third. If you missed it, we did a whole deep dive on the current contract status of Trinity Rodman, but that's not the only player movement that we're keeping an eye on in NWSL. No, because it is the offseason. So things are finally getting announced. That dusty old fax machine is finally cranking out those news releases. We're getting to see the player movement that maybe has already been negotiated for some time, but it's finally getting announced by clubs. A big one, Haley Mace leaving Kansas City Current, headed to Orlando Pride. Brianna Pinto and Ryan Garris have officially signed for Chicago Stars FC. Abby Smith leaving Houston Dash, going to the expansion side, Denver Summit and Gotham FC. Also news before we hop on to the show this morning was that they made their roster decisions as well, and it looks like Ella Stevens is officially going to depart Gotham FC and to pursue some other opportunities. Any of these stand out to you all? You want to maybe show some love to before we move to maybe a different type of club to club move?
I'll shout out Ella for a minute. But I want to hear about Mace from you first, Jen.
Yeah. No, I just think that's a big move. I think to go from Shield winners to another top team in the league, having spent 5 seasons there, I think that would have been a hard decision. That's always my first initial when I read that one. So big move. Another top player in this league who has so much experience. And yeah, in her prime as well still. She's got so much football left to play, still playing unbelievably well. Huge amount of clean sheets, all the good stuff. So I'm excited to see her continue at Pride.
Makes me wonder what's happening with Wayane, but because I feel like they already have strength in their right back position and the left back position with the Bello. She'll just add more depth, and who knows, maybe she has family there, maybe she wanted to go there, maybe the money. We never really know why the player wants to leave. Maybe the depth concern at Kansas City was becoming too much for her, overwhelming. Maybe she just didn't want to live in Kansas City anymore. We just never know. But it'll be exciting to see her transition. But I think, looking at Seb Hines, that's a really good pickup for him. And he's obviously paying attention and on his moves. So that's good. I think for me, Ella Stevens, we didn't get to see much of her at all this season. I know she was struggling with an injury a little bit, but even falling out of favor and just clearly probably not happy at Gotham. So, and I think she has so much to offer any team. She can be a 10 or she can be a 9. She can also, she also proved last year that she can play on the wing. So anywhere in the front 6, she could be valuable depending on the, style of play and the ideology of the club. So I'm anxious to see where she's going to go.
Yeah, I co-sign that for sure, McCall. I think Ella Stevens, unfortunately this year, she had to battle through some injury, but she definitely had that breakout for Gotham last year. It was a huge part of their return to the playoffs in 2024. And there's a lot of teams out there, I think, that could use her. Like you said, just a very versatile attacking player. And that's the kind of player I think that a lot of clubs really want right now or could use. And I don't know, two expansion teams are coming in. I'm sure that's the profile of attacker that maybe they would love to sort of just get on their roster. So I'm sure she will have some options, and we'll see which team she ends up with next. to your point, Jen, I think Haley Mace to Orlando Pride is also another really, really good move. I have to imagine that maybe this was Haley Carter's parting gift for Orlando Pride. I have to imagine that those negotiations didn't just happen overnight either. They were probably happening for quite some time. And that's another move that we need to chat a little bit about in NWSL. An executive, club to club, Haley Carter officially named president of soccer operations for Washington Spirit. This was the move that maybe has kind of truly set all of this stuff regarding Rodman's contract status kind of into another hemisphere. You kind of started to touch on it a little bit in our earlier segment, McCall. You just sort of felt that once this was announced, you're just like, this is a move that was made by Kane to ensure that Rodman stays in the league. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we know and as we've seen, Haley is a mover and a shaker. She's motivated, she's disciplined, she's impressionable ever since she's been moved into a managerial role in the NWSL. Obviously, she played for 3 seasons, didn't play much, so a lot of people might not know her name on the pitch, but she certainly made a name for herself in a management role. And I think, she wants to be known as the one that could keep Trin. Right? Like that's how you measure your success and how well you're doing is basically brought on to use your negotiation power and your likability and your experience on the pitch and, in the front office to keep a major player. So that's what she needs to do. And that's the expectation. So she has a little bit of pressure on her head as well to make sure that deal gets done. And so, like we said, it'll be a very back and forth situation. And, but, hopefully they can come to an agreement because I think they both want the same thing. I think Haley Carter wants Trin to stay and I think Trin wants to stay. I
liked the move. I think when we first saw that Carter was moving on from Orlando, it was right around the NWSL championship leading into that, in fact. So Orlando knew, most of us knew that she was going to move on, but it was just a matter of like where she was going to land. And I think that says a lot right there. I think part of the conversation out of championship week was that it was just like, wow, like Carter's moving on from Orlando. Like A, where's she going to go? But also B, like she's going to stay in NWSL, right? Because her profile as an executive, I think has just like ballooned to a new level. And it's been really, really cool to see in regards of, her trajectory, because we continue to see former players get put into these roles. And these are not just like easy show up to the office and push a pencil kind of role. These are like the difficult, hard decision-making, bad guy sometimes, good guy other times kind of role. And I think for former players, maybe that's not always a hat that they can find themselves wearing. It's difficult to kind of have to be that balancing act, the person that's like, spinning the plates, like, and making sure that they don't break. And so the fact that not only Haley Carter is staying in NWSL, but is going to another team that kind of probably presented some challenges, I thought was probably one of the things that made her want to take on that kind of role. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like you never really lose that, right? Like you're competitor at heart. And I think in those next steps and whatever you choose in your journey, like you also want to be challenged in those things. And I'm sure that was part of it. Whoever they wanted to interview for this role, that was probably one of the number one questions. It was just like, what are you going to do to ensure that we keep Trinity Rodman, and not just in the league, that the Washington Spirit keep Trinity Rodman. As far as like other things that are maybe on the to-do list for this Washington Spirit side, it's get back to the championship and win, right? Or win the league. Those are like the two things that have eluded this club really since Rodman's rookie year. They went out and won the championship in 2021, and they've been trying to sort of piece things together and figure things out ever since. So they missed out on a couple years there on playoffs, but as far as the last couple of seasons, they have been those bona fide contenders. Jen, in your opinion, does a move like this, just the Spirit hiring an executive like this, is this maybe one of those X factor things? Is she someone that can help Spirit finally cross that finish line to a championship?
Yeah, I would say so. I think bottom line, she's already achieved that with Pride, right? So I think coming in, you need someone that's had that experience coming into it. And then I think this will be the perfect place for her to even grow beyond that, because you're kind of under, she quoted herself as the perfect vehicle to affect women's soccer. So I think she has the vision of going beyond what Spirit. It's like working alongside other top leaderships under Can's ownership across London City Lionesses, Lyon, how things are work across the board globally. So it's not just about, first and foremost, of course, the biggest thing is keeping Rodman, which then affects winning a championship. It all kind of filters down. So I think she has her priorities straight. And yeah, 100%. I think she's already, everything she said has kind of got the fans on board for sure, which I think is really important to kind of have gained that respect straight away from players and staff and fans. So being open and honest about what she's focusing on now, I think has been brilliant for everyone to kind of hear. But time will tell. Of course I do think so. I think Washington Spirit, more than even when Rodman, okay, she's had her injuries, but when she's come back absolutely flying and looked fit and looked ready. So it's about keeping her consistent. They gained Sofia Cantori, who I think it impacted the league straight away when she first came involved. So I think they definitely have the talent to do it. And now you could argue they have the leadership and the ownership to 100% get them over the line next year.
Yeah, I think I do wonder. This is also part of it too. This is funny that we're talking about this portion of it coming off of the Rodman stuff, because I have to imagine that the competitor inside of Haley Carter like could be fired up right now, because to essentially have that deal on the table, but then for it to get vetoed, I have to imagine the Spirit are not happy or pleased about that scenario. I do wonder, kind of like the what comes next. It's interesting to sort of see like this morning before we came on the show that the PA filed the grievance, and maybe there's something that comes out of that, the kind of wait and see approach. But to my earlier point of there maybe not being a lot of time for the wait and see approach, like, do we truly get into like some crazy uncharted waters here where it's like arbitration? Like now we're like getting into like areas where it's like truly like the league and also its union have not really found themselves in before. But all of these what ifs, we don't even know if they're going to happen. But I think the big but here is that like the Spirit having a Haley Carter in any sort of like what if capacity or scenario, I think is a huge swing for this team for sure. As far as some other moves across the league, something I want to bring up. So I hope that like the two of you aren't like, where are you going, Sandra? But there's like other vacancies that are happening or up for grabs in this league. We also saw that Rob Gale is gone from Portland Thorns. So it's just like another coaching vacancy in the area. BFC was also a coach that we've known is going to have a vacancy for quite some time. North Carolina is in this category. Again, we haven't really heard any coaching conversation as far as like, who are the people that are going to like be connected to these roles. I just want to give either of you an opportunity to say like maybe which is the team that you think has the most pressing or pressure on them to land that good head coaching hire. And if it's the same, tell me why.
I'll jump in here. I think BFC's next one is really important. I think, to get to playoffs in their first season and then to have, it's a tricky situation, right? When a managerial is announced that they're going to be leaving at the end of the season, and that will naturally cause a dip in morale and energy and everything. So I think they really, from a player perspective, you just want to know who's going to be hired and you want to know who you're going to be working for. And I think they have the potential in the team to really climb that ladder next season. And I think everything that BFC stands for is really important with who they bring in next, because they do have incredible people behind the scenes that I think that's personally why they've taken their time on it, is because it is a really thorough process. And I think that is also what you want to see as a player.
Totally.
People taking their time on decisions like that and really making it a global recruitment process that you are looking everywhere, which I know is what they're doing. So, but I'm really excited to see who they get. Yeah,
no, I think that's a really good shout. I think I would also put like Portland Thorns maybe in the burner a little bit. I think Bay is a great shout, and they have an opportunity because they're still early in building their club and their identity and their culture. Whereas you have someone like a Portland Thorns side that's like a day one. They have kind of like established, winning mentality, winning culture, and they now have new ownership. And Rob Gale maybe was the guy for a very specific time, but now that they're officially in new ownership, they have got to make that next hire the right hire, because it's great to get back to the playoffs, but Portland Thorns are a club and their fans are used to just like winning. So they got to figure out the next right hire for that for sure. So I would put maybe some of the pressure on them as well. Let's maybe look across the pond. We gotta like talk about some things outside of NWSL, outside the United States, because I know there's nothing that the people love more is when we come on here and talk about all things Europe. So stick with us after a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars. What a difference she has made.
The question is, can you handle it?
A crowd here feels electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount Plus.
Hello, and welcome back to Attacking Third. We're going to chat about things across the pond. We've got a rapid fire segment for across the pond because a lot of things happened during this final international window of 2025. We want to give a quick shout out to Germany because they got awarded the next Euros in 2029. They went ahead and beat bids from Poland and the joint bid between Sweden and Denmark. Jen Beattie, I just want to ask you real quick, is 2029 going to be Germany's year?
So I wrote in my notes, this is big, because I think it actually is. Because I think it's huge for them. Germany were genuinely one of my favorite teams to watch at the Euros. I think they have so much potential. I look at their top players. Clara Bull, she's only 24. Eula Brand, she's only 23. Lena Oberdorf, only 23 as well. So I'm thinking those players are just going to keep progressing, keep getting better, and potentially be in their peak come 2029. So Germany have all the history of success.
Yeah.
Multiple.
They won the most.
Yeah, they've won the most out of any. They've just dipped because they've gone through this massive transition. But I still think at the Euros, they were just beaten by Spain, and it took a moment of brilliance by Ballon d'Or winner Bon Mati. Who else? But I think they were brilliant, and they're just a little bit young, and I think that kind of Nations League final kind of showed that little bit of inexperience of how to manage certain moments. Of course, they've got a balance, but I'm really excited. I think this is their opportunity to win a major tournament on home soil, and we've seen it before with England in 2022, winning it on home soil. The Netherlands did the exact same. Home soil Euro winners, so that has an advantage, and I 100% think they have the potential. Of course, Spain are the top team right now. You can't argue that.
I just love that you wrote in your notes, big.
This is big.
B-I-G.
Yeah. No, this is big.
Big. But I wrote this is big and 2 exclamation marks.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was thrilled. I was thrilled for Germany to see it. Shout out to my wife. She did some study abroad, and it happened to be in Germany. So she really has an affinity for the country. And I was like, you know what? That's awesome. I agree with you. This is big. Unfortunately, there's some other bad news for Germany. They got whooped in the Nations League. Spain defended their Nations League title. They defeated Germany 3-0 in Madrid. No question about it. Spain, the top team in Europe.
Yeah. Here's the thing with Germany. If it were as it stands right now, or even in the next 6 months, no, they're not winning the Euros because they cannot beat Spain. They can't even score on Spain, you guys. And listen, they're winning big ball games against France. They won and scored against Sweden. They scored Denmark. They scored Netherlands. They scored. For whatever reason, they cannot score on Spain. And so if they were to meet them at any time between now and the next 6 months, that would be their arch nemesis. But to your point that they have young players, and when they have another, few years for those players to develop, they're only going to get better and better. And I think they'll fix that.
That's because my good friend Alexandra Pop retired, so they're missing that.
Oh, gosh, what is Germany without Pop? Honestly,
we'll see in 2029.
What is Germany without Pop? What is Spain without Bon Mati? Elite still. I loved it. It was incredible. Shout out to Claudia Pina with the big performance. Shout out Vicky Lopez. They're gonna be just fine, gang. And I think that's maybe that was great that you brought up Pop there, Beattie, because it's like that was part of maybe some of that narrative. It's like, how is Spain going to look without Bon Mati? And it turns out just fine. They're going to go ahead and keep crushing it and being the top team in Europe. Okay, we've got UWCL coming up in December. You know, we're going to give you all of the coverage for the Champions League. So let's have fun with a little bit of rapid fire because we're going to be taking deep dives later into the month as a Women's Champions League returns. PSG on the brink of elimination. Rapid fire, Jen, McCall, will they be eliminated next week?
No.
Really?
Given the opponent.
I'll say yes. I'll just be the combo breaker there. Okay. There's two big matches. It's going to be Real Madrid versus Wolfsburg and Manchester United versus OL Leones. Will Real Madrid get a win?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Oh, split on this one.
Yeah, my God, Caroline Weir holding the fort for them. I like Real Madrid this season.
Yeah, I do too. I'm gonna go Real Madrid getting a win. Okay. Manchester United. Fallon Tullis-Joyce has been dealing with a fractured eye socket. They got a big opponent in front of them. Will Man U get a result? Not necessarily a win. Just will they get a result against OL?
No. Leon have been too strong for me.
Okay. PJT out, but it don't matter. United's still gonna do their thing. United's gonna get it.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I'm also gonna go no. I'm gonna say no. I just believe too much in Melchi Dumornay. Yeah. She's incredible, having an incredible season so far in Champions League.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah. I also have clouded United brain, I'm sure. So
yeah. Dumornay, man, too powerful. We love to see it. Okay, Aitana Bonmati touched on it a little bit. She is officially going to miss 5 months following a leg fracture. She went ahead and had some successful surgery on it. Can Barcelona succeed without their 2-time Ballon d'Or winner? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
in unison, make it 3 for 3. I agree. If that was just a glimpse of what some of her teammates can provide without her, not worried for Barcelona. And somehow just watch. But Matisse is going to come back stronger from something like that. So no, I like it. You like it. I love it. We love a rapid fire to close out the show. Thanks everybody for joining us. It was a big one. We had a lot of news to discuss, a lot of thoughts and feelings as well. But don't worry, Attacking Third is going to be back. We're going to be right back here on December 9th at 11 a.m. for a full preview of UWCL. Make sure you tap into all our Women's Champions League content. We're going to get lots of good coverage for match day 5. Make sure you check back in with Jem Beattie because you know Jem Beattie is going to be giving you all the deets of Women's Champions League. But that's a wrap on today's show. Make sure you go ahead and follow Attacking Third wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. We're available at youtube.com/WGolazo. Go ahead and catch us on the Golazo Network for all your women's football content. One more time for McCall, Zerboni, Jen Beattie. I'm Sandra Herrera. Shout out to our producers, Adri and Phil. This was Attacking Third.